In the Name of Beauty, High Heels and its Origins. Although no one really knows when foot binding first began, it is evident that a Chinese version of a Cinderella story brought about the concept of tiny feet. In this version, Cinderella was called Yexian, and because of this story, romantic poets produced poetry highlighting tiny feet and romance. Two examples of these poems are Rhapsody on the Lu River Goddess by Cao Zijian and Ode to the Slippers by Han Wu. Because of poets like these, footbinding became more alluring. Footbinding was perpetuated from the 13th to the 15th century for several reasons. The first being that it enhanced the daughter's marriage prospects. Secondly, it showed that a girl was modest and moral. And lastly, because of its association with women's textile work. Footbinding was a young girl's initiation into the community of women, which consisted of all the women in her family that lived close by. The women's community was always hidden behind the male-centered family. Women's power was considered to be informal, and mother-daughter ties were only celebrated in the minds and hearts of the women. Unfortunately, girls, unlike their brothers, lived unstable and insecure lives. When a girl married, she would first have to please her mother-in-law. Then she would have to have a son in order to have a permanent place in her new family. A woman's body was the only way to a better future. In order to gain value and meaning, she would have to do textile work and give birth. On the day of footbinding, the daughter received her first set of lotus shoes from her mother. After that, her mother would teach her the skills needed to be a good wife, starting with sewing and shoemaking. Shoes became a medium for a woman to communicate. Brides were judged by the shoes they made. Brides were not allowed to loosen their binders, so they had to make sleeping shoes. These were the innermost shoe in a set of 3. Outside the sleeping shoes were their indoor shoes, and they were slightly larger. Finally, over the indoor shoes were the outdoor shoes, also known as booties. The ideal division of labor in Confucian society was men plow, women weave. It is interesting to note the oppressive nature of ancient Chinese society on both the men and women. Men had to deal with intense pressure to not let the family down. They were not free to pursue their own interests at the expense of the family business. Men had one basic choice, however, which was to work with their bodies or their minds. So now that we know a little bit of history about foot binding, we should tie it all together with high heels and modern day society. High heels to me represents the modern day foot binding. It causes pain, long-lasting effects. High heels decrease women's mobility. High heels are a sign of beauty. Girls start wearing them when they reach puberty. High heels are mostly perpetuated by women, and high heels give women a sense of power and status. There are also some differences between high heels and foot binding. Foot binding was not about sexuality, but high heels makes most situations sexualized. Women who bound their feet actually did gain power by marrying men of a higher status. However, women who wear heels may feel that they have sexual power, but that power is in the eye of the beholder. Someone has to find them sexy in order for them to be sexy. There was no choice in foot binding. However, women have the choice whether to wear heels or not. Foot binding became cultural and traditional for women, while heels are more political in the sense that women wear them to work, etc. That I believe ties in all the concepts that we have talked about. In short, how society tries to make women conform by dictating what is fashionable and beautiful, and women thus perpetuating their own oppression in the name of beauty. A Work of Artifice by Marge Piercy. The bonsai tree in the attractive pot could have grown 80 feet tall on the side of a mountain till split by lightning. But a gardener carefully pruned it. It is 9 inches high. Every day, as he whittles back the branches, the gardener croons, "It is your nature to be small and cozy, domestic and weak. How lucky, little tree, to have a pot to grow in. With living creatures, one must begin very early to dwarf their growth. The bound feet, the crippled brain, the hearing curlers, the hands you love to touch."